rider of the red horse.
Then you kissed his ass. It is true. And then you kissed his ass, and then he endorsed you. And you said he's the greatest president of all time.
You were there to stand up for our Constitution. But when the barbarians were at the gate, you were happy to let them in.
I think I disagree with everything my opponent just said, including the words but, and the.
Trump's endorsement of Vance.
The New York Times did a fake story today, big front page, that JD wasn't sure if he wanted my support. JD is kissing my ass. He wants my support. So
I know the president very well, and absolutely, he was joking about a New York Times story. That's all he was doing. I didn't take offense to it.
If you can't even stand up for yourself, how are you going to stand up for the people?
You're running against me.
The debate's most contentious moment was when discussing the so-called replacement theory, the idea that white people are being slowly and intentionally replaced by minorities and immigrants.
Big grand conspiracy. This is a country who's been enriched by immigrants from all quarters of the world. There's no, in the problem.
It's shameful for you to accuse me of that, given my family. It's shameful for you to accuse me of that.
My turn, pal. My turn.
Oh, buddy.
My turn.
I'm not going to Washington if we prevail to be a bootlicker for Donald Trump or Joe Biden.
To suggest that I'm beholden to either party, that I've been a bootlicker for either party is folly, and it's contradicted by the plain facts.
Of electors for Trump to overturn the will of the people. That's what you said. When the barbarians were at the gate, you were happy to let them in.
Nothing to the idea that I would have ever supported, ever did support a fake electors plot.
If you can keep us divided, then that's how you hold on to power. You're used to that. But we're building a cross-partisan coalition to replace you, Senator Lee, and it must be done.
right, and there's no Democratic candidate. The Democrats didn't field a candidate because McMullen,
right? Rape is not inconvenient. It's a significant tragedy. And he thinks that we should have Ohio state law, which says if you're raped or pregnant through incest, that you should be forced to have the baby. This is the largest governmental overreach in the history of our lifetime.
To be bipartisan and get things done. Well, Tim, you've been in Congress for 20 years, and the border problem has got worse and worse and worse.
That actually hire foreign workers. Do you think we're stupid
in Washington?
Sure.
Do you want President Biden to run again in 2024?
No, I've been very clear. I'd like to see a generational change. Mitch McConnell, Donald Trump, the president, everybody. We need a new generation.
And rallied with him.
I want people in Ohio to understand this is the crowd that JD is running around with. The election deniers, the extremists. He's running with an extreme element here that's very, very...
Welcome to What is Politics and What is Truth. I am WAR, and today I'm interviewing a friend of mine who has some political views on both parties, the Democrats and Republicans, and basically the Senate race and these upcoming midterm elections. So let's hear what he has to say. Okay, so last night debate in Ohio between Tim Ryan and JD Vance. How did you think that debate went?
I thought it was an SNL sketch. I couldn't believe it. I mean, nobody advises JD what to say. He came like it looked like he was unprepared. Didn't have any answers. Made a whole bunch of wild accusations with no evidence, of course. Tim Ryan kept his cool and pretty much demolished him. That's what I thought. He brought the receipts, and I think Tim Ryan completely killed him.
So, I mean, from my assessment from that debate, it heated up. I mean, these guys definitely were slinging mud left and right. I don't think they really covered substance as far as for the people of Ohio. I think it was more of who was going to get the most one-liners for television. But it's exactly what I would expect from, typical politicians. But I have another question besides those two that had the debate. We know that we have outside entities that are literally have been attacking the dollar. So let me just ask for the American people, because I don't think a lot of Americans understand just how much pressure the United States has on it right now from its enemies. So if the United States dollar was to fail, explain to me in your own words, what would that look like for us here at home, for all Americans?
Well, I mean, we all have bills, and those bills are going to climb up. We all pay rent, we all pay mortgages, we all pay car payments, and that's the first thing is gonna go up. Our rent's gonna go up, which is already through the roof. Financing is gonna get hard to get, and it's not gonna be good.
So in other words, the way of life that we know as of today, besides the current inflation, this would be pretty much a doomsday for our nation. Banking and our way of life would definitely be uncharted territory for Americans.
As hard as it is, we can't. I can't, afford any more.
Would this be worse than the Great Depression that the United States suffered in 1929?
Well, just so you know, I wasn't alive in 1929, but it could be. I don't know. There's so much uncertainty, so that's why it's so important to get out and vote for whoever you think it's that you think is going to fight for that. So it's important to get out there and voice your opinions and vote for the candidate that you best agree with, and the best candidate you think is going to really fight for that, instead of being in the pockets of the big pharma and the big oil and all that stuff.
So one last question. There's been recent talk of obviously since Trump had came in office and now left office, this whole notion or talk of civil war. Do you think Americans today could what would that even be like? Do you think that's even a possibility of another civil war here on our soil, Americans harming Americans? Or do you just think this is just talk of people?
I think there's a lot of bluffing. I don't think it's impossible. I think it's very improbable, but I don't see it happening. We're still a super military, force.
Right.
It doesn't matter if it's Trump or Biden or Bush or whatever. We still are a military force.
Right.
And people know that. The world knows that. Nobody wants to, come and get it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. So, folks, here you have it. This is WAR, and we're going to have other viewers come on and speak. So thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you guys for the next segment. WAR, back again. I have a special guest who's going to give us some insight on the debate between J.D. Vance and Tim. And so we're going to talk about a couple of subjects here, and we're going to get his feedback. Okay, so here we go. We had these debates between Tim and JD, and what was your views on the debate?
I gotta be honest with you. I'm not crazy about politicians in general, either side, left or right. I tend to be somebody that's right smack in the middle, in the center.
An independent. Okay.
100%. I believe in less government and more personal freedoms.
Right.
So watching two politicians sling mud about taking money from big pharma, I think that money should be kept, like big money should be kept out of all the elections, no matter what, because obviously those companies have the money to get people elected that make decisions that affect us. And if we're not the wealthiest people on the planet, we have really almost no say in it.
Right. So I have another follow-up question to that. So Tim brought up about Congress, basically, our election system having a change, meaning that he would prefer younger people, younger than him, new faces for both parties.
100%.
So you agree that having a younger president, a younger Speaker of the House and Senate, what would be your views on that?
Absolutely. I think some of these people get into politics, and I believe sometimes they start and maybe their heart's in the right places at times, but then over time they get more and more powerful, and you'll see their net worth grow and grow to dizzying heights, and before you know it, they're worth hundreds of millions of dollars in politics on a salary that you know.
Right, so they start off with the government salary, but after they get the money from the lobbyists and Wall Street, these people turn into multi-millionaires.
Hundreds of millions of dollars in
And
politics.
this is what you believe is why our politics continue to be politics.
It's broken. The whole
Right.
system is broken. I honestly believe that.
Now, one of the current events that was in the media recently, the FBI had been talking about, you know, because there's been a lot of chatter in our country about a civil war. What would be your views on a civil war? Like, do you think it's, first of all, even possible? And two, would you like to send a message to anyone who's thinking that that would be beneficial to anybody?
I think that the government does a really good job of keeping people divided. You know what I mean? Based on skin color, race, nationality, sexual orientation, genders. You know, I believe that if the people, the population, were to stay together, that we would just become, you know, I don't think that they can. There's more of us than there are them. I've always
Right.
felt that way.
Which is actually an accurate statement.
Yeah, for sure. But the government does whatever they can to keep us divided. Could there be a civil war? I'm sure it's possible. I really hope not, of course. I mean, I have kids, and so I don't want my kids to have to grow up and feel, you know, or in a position where they're, you know, I feel like we're going backwards.
Right.
You know, when we were younger, it didn't matter what color your skin was, what, you know, what gender. I mean, everybody, you know. It's.
Right.
I just think things have gone way off the rails at this point, and my only message would be we should do the best we can to stay together, and the closer we manage to stay together, the stronger we become as a country.
Now, I believe with those same thoughts that less government overreach in our daily lives,
Absolutely.
I think would actually keep that peace. And allow for people, you know, to fulfill the dreams that they want to fulfill on a daily basis.
The government's way too big right now. It's way too big. They tell us what we can and can't do on almost everything, and it's just, it seems like the bigger the government gets, the more and more rights they take away from everybody, and that's it's troubling to see.
Right. So there you have it with our interview today, and I want to thank my special guest for coming on. And this is WAR, and what is politics and what is truth. Thank you guys for tuning in. So this is WAR, and I have my special guest on. We wanted to also talk about the Dr. Oz and Fetterman race in PA. And so we're gonna discuss this. We wanna let viewers know about how you feel about that race.
I don't think that Fetterman should even be running. I mean, that's just my opinion. I don't.
Now, is that because of health, or is that because of his previous track record?
Well, listen, again, I can tell you that I know that he had a stroke in May, and that's something that is, I mean, a couple months after a stroke, you're really not in the place or state of mind to be able to answer questions. And I think that was pretty obvious when he was on stage, and it turned into a disaster for him. And while, again, I'm more in the center than right or left, I think it made him. I think his party took some damage because of that particular debate, and I think that it's almost like he's guaranteed to lose that race now, because I think people see that he's just not mentally there.
Okay. And what are your views about Dr. Oz? Do you think, because there's 3 actual contenders in that race, I mean, those are the 2 main characters that you see focus, but you also...
Here's what I like about Dr. Oz, and again, Pennsylvania doesn't, I mean, I live in New Jersey. The fact that Dr. Oz is getting into politics, having already made money, and I don't think that his motives are money. Unfortunately, I think a lot of politicians get into politics because they realize how much money is involved in it. I would tend to trust an outsider more than I would trust somebody that's a career politician. So, I mean, again, if I lived in Pennsylvania, I would give him a chance, because I don't believe that he's got, I don't think he has ulterior motives. I believe he's really trying to make a difference.
Now, we've seen in the past from politicians who had 0 experience governing, because it is different to govern, and I don't think people really understand what that means. You know, it's not like the same as running a business. Well, you know, if I was a corporation and I set certain policies in place, you know what those policies are before I even hire you. They would be discussed, and you would agree or disagree to sign off on our agreements. But when it comes to government, because you're dealing with so many people with different backgrounds and different beliefs, it's a little bit harder because you can't really cater to everyone.
Absolutely.
So he obviously lacks a little bit of this experience, and I know at some point we all have to get our feet wet.
Absolutely.
With something. But being he is an outsider, do you think he can win or fail at this job if he was to get the job?
My belief is that the way our government is set up now, I think that politicians should be, there should be term limits on everything. You get in and out, make a difference or not. I believe that some people try to stay in politics for a long period of time, and that's their career. And I just don't think that there should be any career politicians at all. I think politics should, again, 100% term limits. Maybe 1 or 2 terms max.
I will 100% agree with you with that, and I've asked these questions before, and in order for us, meaning citizens, to be able to even get close to having term limits for our senators and our House representatives, it starts with the local election and putting pressure on your governors, because our politicians are elected by the states that they're in, right? And then they go to DC. So a lot of folks don't really know how that could even be possible. How do we get term limits? Well, it will start for us really advocating for it and putting pressure on the governor of our state to then have laws written by our state Congress to basically set up a term limit.
Right.
Once one state does it, then the rest will follow. But it starts with the people's voice first, of letting their governors know they would really prefer to have a term limit on their senators and House representatives.
Why do you think that the president has term limits? There's term limits for being a president.
Well, the founders really put that in place mainly because we did not want a queen or a dictatorship here or a king. So it's really not good, as we've seen throughout history and time, having one human being be in charge of many. Too much power can lead to corruption and usually failure of government when it's like that. So that's why we have a change of presidency.
Right. But now think of it this way: the House of Representatives, of the Congress, Senate, there's some people that are in there for 30, 40, 50, 60 years.
Until death do them part, basically. Which I believe that's actually not a good thing. Actually, I don't even think it's healthy for them personally, to be honest with you. But I don't think it's healthy for our government or for the people when we have people that we know who have been lifers in Congress. And I agree with you 100%.
Younger people, term limits. That's the way it should be.
Exactly. So thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you for the next segment.
I'll turn it all around if I could, but I know it's not enough.